And so just thinking, sort of going back and thinking about some of the stuff that we did, it was a lot of reading, it was a lot of, reading through paragraphs and different aspects there. So we'll get some reading in today again. And like I said, we're kind of winging it, but this should be good practice again. This is something that we haven't seen for a while. So that should kind of help refresh us on some of the stuff that we did back in January and before the end of last year. Nilda, since you're just joining us, we're going to work on the Unit 2 review.
Oh, yes?
Yeah, we're going to work on the Unit 2 review. So we're just going to, I'm going to pull that up and we will read through the just again, questions.
Uh-huh.
All right. That heard me. Okay. All right.
No.
All right, let's get started here. Let's start with some reading here. Grace, why don't you start us off and read through about paragraphs, these are little ones, paragraphs 1 through 6, if you don't mind.
Okay. Ocean acidification. Earth's atmosphere isn't the only victim of burning fossil fuels. About a quarter of all carbon dioxide emissions are absorbed by the Earth's ocean, where they are having an impact that is just starting to be understood. Over the last decade, scientists have discovered that this excess CO2 is actually changing the chemistry of the sea and proving harmful for many forms of marine life. This process is known as ocean acidification. A more acidic ocean could wipe out species, disrupt the food web, and impact fishing, tourism, and any other human endeavor that relies on the sea. The change is happening fast, and it will take fast action to slow or stop it. Over the last 250 years, oceans have absorbed 530 billion tons of CO2, triggering a 30% increase in ocean acidity. Before people started burning coal and oil, ocean pH had been relatively stable for the previous 20 million years. But researchers predict that if carbon emissions continue at their current state, ocean acidity will more than double by 2100.
All right.
The polar regions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish that one.
Okay. The polar regions will be the first to experience changes. Projections show that the Southern Ocean around Antarctica will actually become corrosive by 2050.
All right. And Sasha Gay, how about reading 7 through 13?
Okay. The new chemical composition of our oceans is expected to harm a wide range of ocean life, particularly creatures with shells. The resulting disruptions to the ocean ecosystem could have a widespread ripple effect and further deplete already struggling fisheries worldwide. Increased acidity reduces carbonate, the material used to form the shells and skeleton of many shellfish and corals. The effect is similar to osteoporosis, slowing growth and making shells weaker. If pH levels drop enough, the shells will literally dissolve. This process will not only harm some of our favorite seafood, such as lobster and mussels, but will also injure some species of smaller marine organisms, things that as pteropods and coccolithophores.
Coccolithophores, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. You've probably never heard of them, but they form a vital part of the food web. If those smaller organisms are wiped out, the larger animals that feed on them could suffer as well. Delicate corals may face an even greater risk than shellfish because they require very high levels of carbonate to build their skeletons. Acidity slows reef building, which could lower the resiliency of corals and lead to their erosion and eventual extinction. The tipping point for coral reef could happen as soon as 2050. Coral reefs serve as a home for many other forms of ocean life. Their disappearance would be akin to rainforests being wiped out worldwide. Such losses would reverberate throughout the marine environment and have profound social impacts as well, especially on the fishing and tourism industries.
I'll finish up here. Ultimately, though, reducing the amount of carbon dioxide absorbed into the oceans may be the only way to halt acidification. The same strategies needed to fight global warming on land can also help in the seas. The acidification of our oceans is the hidden side of the world's carbon crisis, says Lisa Swatani, a Natural Resources Defense Council ocean scientist, and only reinforces that we need to make changes in how we fuel our world, and we need to do it quickly. And that is from the nrdc.org article, Ocean Acidification, the Other CO2 Problem. And we also get a little graph here. We have to deal with some data as well. So historical and projected pH and dissolved CO2. So you probably study a little bit about pH levels in science, right? And 7 is sort of the pH balance of like water. Anything, the farther you move up that scale, it's a base. The farther you move down that scale, it becomes acidic. And then we see the correlation there, right? As the dissolved carbon dioxide increases in the ocean, the drop in the pH balance of the sea occurs. So our first question then, Christiana, you want to try our first question for the review?
Okay. Number 1. Which sentence best explains why the author provides background information in paragraph 1, 2, and 3? A. The author wished to contrast carbon absorption in the atmosphere and in the sea. B. The author assumed that many readers are unfamiliar with the problem of ocean acidification. C. The author wished to emphasize the ways in which human activities affect the ocean. D. The author assumed that readers will disagree with their claims about ocean acidification. Is B?
Yeah, B, right? So the authors assume are unfamiliar with the problem of ocean acidification. When you're reading something, I used to tell my college students this, and I've mentioned this to you guys, who is the audience? Who is this person writing for? And if they're giving you background information, whether it's on science data or, anything, history or, whatever it may be, the more sort of background information and the more explanation that they give to you, that's indicating that, it might be for a larger general audience. It's not, that knowledgeable about this particular subject, right? Sort of giving you more information so you understand. So yeah, we got B as in boy for number 1. And 2, let's go to Nilda. Would you like to try number 2 for us?
Yes, that data in paragraph 4, 5, and 6, A, support the claim that changes in ocean acidity are happening fast. B, show that efforts to reduce carbon emissions have not been effective. C, challenge the claim that the atmosphere is not the only victim of fossil fuels. D, illustrate how ocean acidity can harm coral reefs and other sea level. Let me check there.
Would you like
Paragraph
to
5 there.
4, 5, and 6.
Okay. And the answers. D?
A. So on the right track there, but it's overall showing how the support that changes in ocean acidity are happening fast. So it mentions, let's see here, right? So 30% increase in the ocean acidity over the last 250 years. Before people started burning coal and oil, ocean pH had been relatively stable for the previous 20 million years. So really specific to the idea of ocean acidity in those paragraphs. The other thing here to think about, as far as like think about your extended response, right? So in the body of those paragraphs is where we're going to find the evidence that's used. So could kind of consider how these passages are put together will kind of help you think about how you're going to form your own extended responses when it comes to writing. All right, so 3. So 2 was A, support the claim that changes in ocean acidity are happening fast. 3, Grace, you want to read question 3 for us?
Okay. Osteoporosis is a disease in which the bones become weak and fragile. The authors compare osteoporosis with what is happening to shellfish in order to help readers understand how acidity affects shellfish and coral. B, show that human skeletons can be affected by ocean acidity. C, explain how the mineral carbonate functions in shell formation. And D, teach readers about the nutritional needs of shellfish. Lisa. A.
Help readers understand how acidity affects shellfish and coral. Yeah, right. Sort of explain those same terms. So, sort of offering an anecdote there, right? Sort of one of those rhetorical devices by comparing it to another, unlike idea, we can see, help explain that. So A there for number 3, help readers understand how acidity affects ocean life. 4, let's see, yeah, same passage. Sasha Gay, I'm gonna try number 4.
It says, which statement best explains the relationship between paragraphs 9 and 10? A, paragraph 10 provides more information about what pteropods and coccolithophores are and where they are found. B, paragraph 9 describes some organisms that inhabit coral reefs, and paragraph 10 describes large organisms. C, paragraph 9 identifies small organisms, and paragraph 10 explains how they are affected by acidification. D, paragraph 10 explains why the effects of ocean acidity on pteropods and coccolithophores are significant.
Want to take a look at the paragraphs again?
Yes, please.
There we go, 9 and 10.
All right, can go back down, please. Is it D?
Yeah, paragraph 10 explains the effect of ocean acidity. So paragraph 9, right, it mentions sort of generally, the process only harm some of our favorite seafood, mussels and lobsters, will also injure some species of smaller marine organisms, things such as pteropods and coccolithores. You've probably never heard of them, and you probably don't know how to pronounce them, but they form a vital part of the food web, right? So then it explains how that's going to affect it. So we get it introduced in paragraph 9, and then it follows through, explain the effects in paragraph 10. So there's the relationship there, right? Let's see, number 5. Christiana, would you like to try number 5? Go too far. Where am I? Sorry, that's number 5.
Okay.
All right. Number 5.
All right, number 5. Which statement best explains an implicit purpose of the passage? A. To interact. Okay, to interest readers in the life cycle of coral reefs and their inhabitants. B, to inspire readers to visit the coral reef before they disappear. C, to encourage readers to reduce their use of fossil fuels. D, to alert readers to the challenges the fishes industry face. Okay. An implicit. D.
It's C. So encouraging readers to reduce their use of fossil fuels. So remember, implicit and explicit. So implicit is sort of reading between the lines. What is this author telling me without telling me, right? What is not there that I can gain from this? Explicitly means they're just out and out saying it, right? So they're actually giving you, like when it comes to the data, they're telling you about this or telling you about that. But here, thinking about questions that you ask yourself while you're reading, why are they telling this? What are they, what is the purpose here? What's going on? So they're, stating here implicitly, because of the danger to the ocean, that we need to, encourage everyone to reduce their use of fossil fuels. So C there for number 5, implicit and explicit. All right, same passage. What we have, our favorite, our drag and drop boxes. So let's see here. Let's just work through our supported. So drag and drop sentences into the chart to show which claims are supported by evidence in the passage and which are not. All answer options should be used. So I remember this, I believe. So what is supported? Is the tipping point for coral reefs could happen? Is that supported or unsupported?
Unsupported.
Unsupported. Humans must act quickly to save the coral reefs and shellfish.
Supported.
Right. Our evidence supports that. Ocean acidity has increased rapidly in the past 250 years.
Supported.
Supported.
Right, because they show, before the use of coal, that little had changed. Human activity is likely the cause of increased CO2 emissions.
Supported.
Supported.
Supported. And then detail not provided. Unsupported. Detail not provided.
Yeah.
Unsupported. Yeah, so they only gave us one unsupported, actually. It's kind of funny. It's like all of these must be used. But yeah, so we have evidence, right? We have something to support the claim. Humans, again, thinking about, writing extended response. Humans must act quickly to save the coral reefs and shellfish. They do that by showing us data of how that's changed and how humans have affected, ocean acidity and pH levels. So ocean acidity has increased rapidly in the past 250 years, and human activity is likely the cause of increased CO2 emissions. So within that, we have numbers to support that. We have data to support those claims. The one thing, though, the tipping point for coral reefs could happen as soon as 2050. They don't, really support that. There's nothing really there that's concrete to say one way or the other. So submit there and all green. And yeah, number 7, we're still rolling with ocean acidity here. Nilda, would you like to try number 7?
Yes. Which claim from the passage does the paragraph support? A. Excess CO2 is actually changing the chemistry of the sea. B. Ocean pH has been relatively stable for the previous 20 million years. C. The polar regions will be the first to experience changes. D. The strategies needed to fight global warming on land also can help in the seas. B.
See, 7 is A. So excess CO2 is actually changing the chemistry of the sea. So, right, as on the graph here, we see the CO2 levels going up. They don't really tell us what the numbers mean exactly. What does 20, what is that exactly? We can look in the passage, it'll give us a little more detail. And, we see the pH level going down. So yeah, that's the correlation there, right? And that is A, excess CO2 changing the chemistry of the sea. So 7 is A. Looks like we got a new passage here, coming energy crisis. Back to Grace. You want to do paragraphs 1 through 6 for us?
Okay. The coming energy crisis. Tonight, I want to have an unpleasant talk with you about a problem that is unprecedented in our history. With the exception of preventing war, this is the greatest challenge that our country will face during our lifetime. The energy crisis has not yet overwhelmed us, but it will if we do not act quickly. It's a problem that we will not be able to solve in the next few years, and it's likely to get progressively worse through the rest of this century. We must not be selfish or timid if we hope to have a decent world for our children and our grandchildren. We simply must balance our demand for energy with our rapidly shrinking resources. By acting now, we can control our future instead of letting the future control us. 2 days from now, I will present to the Congress my energy proposals. 8 members will be my partners, and they have already given me a great deal of valuable advice. Many of these proposals will be unpopular. Some will cause you to put up with inconveniences and to make sacrifices. The most important thing about these proposals is that the alternative may be a national catastrophe. Further delay can affect our strength and our power as a nation. Our decision about energy will test the character of the American people and the ability of the president and the Congress to govern the nation, to govern this nation. This difficult effort will be the moral equivalent of war, except that we will be uniting our efforts to build and not to destroy.
Right. And well, okay, there it's scrolling for me. Sasha Gay, you want to take 7 through, we'll say 7 through 10 for us.
Now I know that some of you may doubt that we face real energy shortages. The 1973 gas lines are gone, and with this springtime weather, our homes are warm again. But our energy problem is worse tonight than it was in 1973 or a few weeks ago in the dead of winter. It's worse because more waste has occurred and more time has passed by without our planning for the future. And it will get worse every day until we act. The oil is the oil and natural gas that we rely on for 75% of our energy are simply running out. In spite of increased effort, domestic production has been dropping steadily at about 6% a year. Imports have doubled in the last 5 years. Our nation's economic and political independence is becoming increasingly vulnerable. Unless profound changes are made to lower oil consumption, we now believe that early in the 1980s, the world will be demanding more oil than it can produce. The world now uses about 60 million barrels of oil a day, and demand increases each year about 5%. This means that just to stay even, we need the production of a new Texas. This means that just to stay even, we need the production of a new Texas every year, an Alaska North Slope every 9 months, or a new Saudi Arabia every 3 years. Obviously, this cannot continue. If we fail to act soon, we will face an economic, social, and political crisis that will threaten our free institutions. But we will have another choice. We have to begin to prepare right now. We can decide to act while there is still time. That is the concept of the energy policy that we will present on Wednesday.
All right. What else we have here? Our national energy plan is based on 10 fundamental principles. The first principle is that we can have an effective and comprehensive energy policy only if the government takes responsibility for it and if the people understand the seriousness of the challenge and are willing to make sacrifices. I believe that this can be a positive challenge. There's something especially American in the kinds of changes that we have to make. We've always been proud through our history of being efficient people. We've always been proud of our ingenuity, our skill at answering questions. Now we need efficiency and ingenuity more than ever. We've always been proud of our leadership in the world, and now we can have a chance again to give the world a positive example. We've always been proud of our vision of the future. We've always wanted to give our children and our grandchildren a world richer in possibilities than we have had ourselves. They are the ones that we must provide for now. They are the ones who will suffer most if we don't act. And I remember reading this, Jimmy Carter addressed to the nation on energy in 1977 during an energy crisis. I believe at this time, we talk a lot about gas prices right now, not really relevant to what we're doing at the moment, but based on inflation, the price of gas, based on the average wage of the American worker and whatnot in the 1970s was worse than they are today. So kind of factoring that in, it was actually a worse energy crisis and the price of gas and things. People lining up at the pumps in the 70s because they were scared of not being able to get their fuel. All righty then. Let's see. Christiana, you want to read answer number 8 for us?
Okay. Number 8. Which statement best explain why paragraph 1 display faulty logic or reasoning? A. The author appeals to readers' sense of patriotism. B. The author presents a false cause and effect relationship. C. The author provides facts that are irrelevant to the claim. D. The author uses extra. Presents the word.
Which one?
The last, the D. The author
Exaggerated?
uses.
Exaggerated?
Okay, yeah. Exaggerated emotional language. Z is D.
D? Yeah. Looking at that, right? We talked about hyperbole, right? Sort of using this exaggerated, talk with you about a problem that's unprecedented in our history. With the exception of preventing war, this is the greatest challenge that our country will face during our lifetime. When you hear claims like that, you ask yourself, is it though? That's the way you kind of, you should approach something like that. Unprecedented in our history. I mean, we're talking worse than the Civil War, or the greatest challenge that our country will face. I don't know. The Great Depression was pretty bad, so things like that. He's trying to, like we talked about, speaking in hyperbolic terms. So you're trying to grab the reader's attention. We talked about that as sort of faulty logic. Bombastic is another way sometimes, especially with politicians, they talk bombastically about things. That's sort of another idea of hyperbole. Okay, so that was D for 8. Let's see, number 9. Let's go to Nilda for number 9.
Yes. In paragraph 5, the author acknowledges that many of his ideas will be unpopular and states that the alternative to his proposal may be a national catastrophe. Why does he make this statement? A, to frighten readers about the future could hold. B, to remind readers of the nation's accomplishment. C, to anticipate and respond to possible conflicts viewpoints. D, to compare and contrast his ideas with past proposals. A?
So C. So he's anticipating and responding to possible conflicting points. So if we look at paragraph 5, and he says many of these proposals will be unpopular, right? So there's going to be criticism regarding these policies that he's making. Some will cause you to put up with inconveniences and to make sacrifices. The most important thing, right? So here's sort of like a counter argument. The most important thing about these proposals is that the alternative may be a national catastrophe. Further delay can affect our strength and our power as a nation. And I mentioned this before too, right? Jimmy Carter, he said stuff to Americans that Americans didn't want to hear, and that's one reason he didn't get reelected. He was kind of straightforward with everybody, and nobody, Americans don't want to hear. It's like, no, you're not going to tell me I need to tighten my belt, or we're going to have tough times. That's we don't like to hear that. But yeah, he was basically anticipating what may be used against him. So sort of a counterclaim there that he's making. C for number 9. 10. We have, let's see, Grace, let's go back to you for number 10.
Okay. Throughout paragraph 7, which begins, now, I know that some of you may doubt. The author repeats the word worse. This repetition creates a sense of A, fright and emphasize the dangers of not taking action. B, urgency and emphasize the seriousness of the problem. C, hopelessness and make the crisis seem overwhelming. D, anger and makes the opposition seem weak. Can you please go to number the paragraph 7 for me?
7. There we go.
Uh, B. That's important.
The urgency and emphasize the seriousness of the problem. Yep. And that's usually when we encounter repetition, right? We talked about this as far as rhetorical technique. You're emphasizing a point if we're using that same phrase or same word over and over again. So, he says there, what was the paragraph 7 again? Towards the bottom, but our energy problem is worse tonight than it was in 1973 or a few weeks ago in the dead of winter. It's worse because more waste has occurred and more time has passed by without our planning for the future, and it will get worse every day until we act. So, very intentional use of the same word there to help emphasize a point. So number 10 is B. 11, same passage. Sasha Gay answered number 11 for us.
Which statement best describes the relationship between paragraphs 7 and 8? A, paragraph 7 claims that energy shortages are worsening, and paragraph 8 gives evidence to support the claim. B, paragraph 7 identifies the worst shortages, and paragraph 8 describes these shortages in greater detail. C, paragraph 7 describes the negatives of pursuing a new energy policy, and paragraph 8 describes the positives. D, paragraph 7 introduces the worsening problems of wasted energy, and paragraph 8 details a possible solution or possible solutions. Is it A?
It is A. 11 is A. So paragraph 7. Now, when you run into these, if you run these on exam, right, that's probably the way they're going to be set up. One paragraph is supporting a claim, or one paragraph is making a claim, and the other paragraph is supporting the claim. It's just a matter of knowing which, detail is being, provided and asserted and what the claim is. So paragraph 7, we have, I know some of you may doubt the real energy shortages. 73 gas lines are gone, and with the springtime weather, our homes are warm again, but our energy, that whole worse and worse idea. And then 8, gives you the evidence. The oil and natural gas that we rely on for 70% of our energy are simply running out. In spite of increased effort, domestic production has been dropping, right? So there you go. It's sort of that cause and effect. Yeah, Nilda, we're just using my screen to go through the review. So yeah, if you've already taken the quiz, the review, it's probably not. I could probably reset it though. I'll ask Rachel about that. I think she might be able to reset quizzes and stuff if you want to try it again. But we're just working through it for practice here on the screen. Number 12. Yeah, same passage. Nilda, you want to take care of that one for us?
Yes. Paragraph 10 begins, if we fail to act soon, which statement best explains how the structure and purpose of this paragraph are related. A, in the first sentence, the author describes a crisis. The word but is in the second sentence signaled that in the rest of the paragraph. The author explains a way to avoid the crisis. B, in the first sentence, the author lists the types of crises the United States could face. In the rest of the paragraph, he describes this crisis in the greater detail. C, in the first half of the paragraph, the author states the opinions of his opponent. In the second half of the paragraph, the author responds to those views. D, the author uses the word now to signal a shift in time between the events described in the first two sentences and the events described in the rest of the paragraph. Can I check paragraph 10?
You can. There you go.
Okay. C?
A. So the way this is kind of worded is a little confusing. So, he's saying in the first sentence, the author describes a crisis, right? So number 10, if we fail to act soon, we would face economic, social, and political crisis that will threaten our free institutions. They should have some quotations around the word but. The word but in the second sentence to help you understand that they're actually talking about that specific word. The word but in the second sentence signals that in the rest of the paragraph, the author explains a way to avoid the crisis. So go ahead and select A. And then, so looking there, right, that first word, this is a little awkward because you wouldn't use but at the beginning of a sentence. Just stylistically, you try to use like nevertheless or however or on the other hand, right? We talked about the contrast in writing. The other problem here is that it should be a comma after that, right? You set off those transitional words and phrases with a comma. And this is a speech, right? So this might be sort of like a transcript of the speech where they don't really put in all the punctuation and everything. And again, speaking to an audience is going to maybe sound a little different than when you're actually reading it. It's not necessarily meant for an audience to read it. But yeah, so that but though is adding contrast. It's like, we've got this crisis, nevertheless, however, but we have other choices, right? So A for 12 that was 11. Yeah, no, that was 12. I'm sorry. 12 is A. 13, Christiana, you want to read 13 and answer for us?
Okay. In the last three paragraphs, the author tries to persuade his audience by using repetition to appeal to the A, sense of fear, B, sense of patriotism, C, desire for popularity, D, desire for wealth. Is B?
B, yeah, sense of patriotism. So looking at those last few paragraphs, we've always been proud through our history or being efficient people. We've always been proud of our ingenuity, our skill at answering questions. Now we need efficiency. So there's some repetition, right? We've always been proud through our history. We've always been proud of our ingenuity. You're talking about the spirit of Americans. I believe this, could be a positive change. There's something especially American in the kinds of changes that we have to make. So again, patriotism there. And then finally, there's lots of repetition in that last paragraph. He starts several sentences there with "we've always been," right? We've always been proud. Again, we've always been proud of our vision. And then the third sentence there, or fourth sentence basically is, we've always wanted to give our children and grandchildren a world richer. So that repetition again, emphasizing, and the whole thing has repetition. Those last two sentences, they are the ones that we must provide for now. They are the ones who will suffer most if we don't act. So that emphasis through repetition. B for 13, sense of patriotism. 14. Let's see. Sasha Gay, you want to do 14 for us? Oop, that's a fill in the blank.
It says the author's implicit purpose in the passage is to encourage readers to support the new like energy system.
Energy proposals, I think, but yeah, you're on the right track. So yeah, so he mentions it's like this might be tough for us. So energy, PRPOSALS, energy proposals or energy reform, energy plans. But yeah, you got the right idea there. Yeah, this is all what he's talking about is we're going to have to enact some new proposals, put in a new plan to help with the energy crisis here. So emotional words, right? We've got drag and drop again. The words that have emotional connotations in the context of the passage, and we put those into our WebO emotional words here. So what are emotional words that he used here?
Catastrophe.
Catastrophe, certainly, that is an emotional word. What else?
Proposal.
Proposal, not emotional, right? That's just talking about his ideas. What else kind of invokes emotion when you read it?
Selfish.
Selfish. What else?
Timid.
Timid. Well, if I can, there we go. And last one.
Changes.
Grandchildren.
Grandchildren, right? So when he's, so they're either probably going to be like adverbs and adjectives, right? They'll be descriptive words. Those are words that you don't necessarily have to use to discuss an issue, and they often describe a situation. So catastrophe being the noun there, that, but it's very strong word, right? You could just use an issue or a situation or this event, but catastrophe makes you think of disaster. Selfish, obviously, descriptive word. Timid, a descriptive word. And then, anytime you talk about somebody's children or grandchildren, that's definitely going to invoke a lot of emotion. So that's, throughout his speech there, he is appealing to emotion, right? That's, sort of another rhetorical device that we encounter here. So catastrophe, selfish, timid, grandchildren. Okay, LEDs are the future. Let's see here. Christiana, would you like to read? Let's go paragraphs 1 through 4.
Okay. You said 1 through 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. GE, this is General Electric. Invite the light and invite the light. Is it emitting?
Emitting, yeah.
Yeah, emitting. And then is it emitting? The D word is what?
Diode.
Okay, emitting diode in 1962. The first one to come into wide use, growing a space-age red, turn up in the clock ratio, pocket calculators, and digital watches of the 1970s. Additional colors came along over the next couple of decades. LEDs are manufactured more or less like any other semiconductor. Each edge is cut from a wafer. The word is wafer, right?
Wafer, yep.
Wafer of crystals layered over a base silicone or snaps. Snaps here.
See, base, let's see. Silicone or sapphire, was that?
Base of silicone or the S word, paragraph two, the second sentence.
Yeah. Sapphire.
Okay. Sapphire. There's crystal layers on early layers were gallium,
Yeah.
gallium arsenate. Gallium as the ARSE word.
I think it's just arsenide or arsenide.
Okay, arsenate or gallium sulfide, which lends that reddish color, additional color, and increased brightness require more the N word, more natured nuance control of layer composition and depth. Modern lens makers accomplish this by using Pierce ratio of indium, gallium, aluminum, and nitrogen for crystal layers, which results in a bluish color. But on their own, not even advanced LED can produce anything suitable for the living room. The blue changed illumination is fine for say a pen flashlight on a keychain, but it does not come close to the warm light the human eye desires. There are two ways LED makers create a more pleasant white. In the 1990s, the favored technique was to combine red, green, and blue LEDs, but they all have different efficiencies and operating requirements. Different efficiencies and operating requirements, heat management, power supply, and drivers. The bulb controlling circuit boards gets more complex.
Okay, let's see. And then, so the LEDs found in current household applications are blue diodes daubed with a powdered coating called a phosphor, which includes rare earth elements that filter blue light. The phosphor is generally yellow, and depending on the composition of the phosphor and the ratio of unconverted blue white, the resulting white light can range from the warm glow preferred by home use to cooler tints more suited to, say, retail and outdoor use. From Wired's The Future of White is the LED, Dan Kopel, 2011. What do we have here? Oh, FAQ. Yeah, I think I remember this from before. So, an FAQ, frequently asked questions, where you have, on a website, typically, when you have a product, when they'll put together this sort of, they'll compile a list of questions that are asked because they get the same ones over and over again and provide information. So like the first question here, how exactly are these new bulbs better than traditional incandescent bulbs? And then the first answer, newer energy saving bulbs, such as Energy Star, qualified CFLs, and LEDs, as well as halogen incandescent technologies, can produce the same amount of light lumens as a traditional incandescent bulb while using significantly less energy. So when you replace your traditional incandescent bulbs with the energy savers, you will pay less to get the same amount of light. Many of the newer bulbs also last significantly longer than traditional bulbs, so you won't need to replace them as often and will keep saving into the future. Energy Star LEDs use about 25% of the energy and last up to 25 times longer than traditional incandescent bulbs they replace. An Energy Star CFL uses about 25% of the energy and lasts 10 times longer than a comparable traditional incandescent bulb. Switching to energy-saving bulbs will reduce the growth of U.S. energy demand and avoid carbon emissions. Nationwide, lighting accounts for about 14% of all building electricity use, about 10% of home electricity. With the EISA standards, U.S. households could save nearly $6 billion in 2015 alone. And then we have another question asked here. So what is the cost difference between the new lights and my incandescent bulbs? How much money will I save when I switch to these new bulbs? The answer they give, upgrading 15 traditional incandescent bulbs in your home with energy saving bulbs could save you about $50 per year. While the initial price of the newer light bulbs is typically higher than the inefficient incandescent bulbs you are replacing, you'll spend less each year to operate them. Most CFLs pay for themselves with the energy they save in less than 9 months. Average consumers will spend about $4.80 to operate a traditional incandescent bulb for a year. By comparison, average consumers will spend about $1 to operate an Energy Star LED bulb, about $3.50 on a halogen incandescent bulb, and about $1.20 on an Energy Star CFL bulb, each that produces about the same amount of light. And that is from energy.gov. Right, so that's going to appear, on a government website. We talked a lot about those, the different domain names, government, commercial.com, right? So in paragraph 3 of the article, the word illumination means what?
Light.
Light. Yep. So, sort of think about context clues, right? So paragraph 3 of the article. So going back up to the top, but on their own, not even advanced LEDs. The blue tinged illumination is fine. Well, what the heck does that mean? That's going to mean light, because what else could be blue tinged in, context of what we're reading? So light for 16, 17, another fill in the blank. So the signal words in paragraph 8 of the FAQs indicate that the information in this paragraph will blank the costs of different bulbs. Signal words in paragraph 8.
Compare.
Yeah, right. So by comparison, right, there's our signal phrase. Compare for number 17, 18. LEDs are still the future. Nelda, would you like to answer 18 for us?
Yes. Which statement best explains the overall impact of the FAQs? A. Inadequately supported arguments leave the reader with more questions than answers. B. Emotional language encourages the reader to take actions on the issue. C. Convincing and well-supported points motivate the reader to follow the author audience. D. Failure to incorporate well-researched facts force the reader to question the author credibility. A.
Let's see, C. So convincing, well-supported, and well-supported points motivate the reader to follow the author's advice. A lot of times that's sort of the point of an FAQ. Say I'm researching a new product. Usually you encounter with something you're going to buy. Maybe like for some type of program or something like that you want to try. And that's sort of the idea, right? So these are questions that company or institution has already encountered, and so they want to alleviate people's concerns, about that product, and that's what you get from the questions, right? Well, like question 1, how exactly are these new bulbs better? Right, that's one that you might see. And then secondly, right, so what is the cost difference? That would be certainly a concern when trying a new product like that. So yeah, so the idea here is that they're convincing that, and they use data, right? They use numbers here as far as savings that are going to be involved, how the lifetime of the bulbs are different. A lot of data involved there, so it's well supported with facts. 18C, 19. Grace, I'm going to answer 19 for us.
Okay. Which statement best describes the audience of the article and the FAQs? A, both address politicians. B, both address an audience of electrical engineers. C, the article addresses people with some scientific background, but the FAQ addresses consumers. And D, the article addresses an audience of scientists, but the FAQs address people who want to only save money. It's C.
C. Yeah, article addresses people with some scientific background. The FAQ addresses customers. What makes you think that the article addresses people with scientific backgrounds? What tips you off to that?
Yeah, the first one, inverted light emitting diode. Scientists invents.
Yeah, and right. So we hear a lot of jargon. That's the word that when with a particular profession or something. Hey, you look at that second paragraph, man. It's like, I don't know what gallium phosphide is. I don't know what arsenide is. That's definitely speaking more to people who are going to understand that, right? So their target audience is somebody with a little more knowledge of diodes and semiconductors and stuff like that. When you run into those words, they're like, man, I don't know what this is. That typically will indicate that. Like we mentioned before, they would give you some more information there. They would explain what a diode is if it was for more of a general audience. They wouldn't use, each diode is cut from a wafer of crystals layered over a base of silicon or sapphire. All right, well, maybe that's okay. But that next, the crystal layer on an early LED was gallium arsenide. That means nothing to, your general reader. And then something else to kind of tip you off here, is where does the article appear? And Wired, right, is going to be sort of like a publication that deals with science and technology and stuff like that. And then more straightforward, right? Somebody, this is very much more general question that somebody would ask about like an LED light bulb. How exactly are these new bulbs better? That's a very general question. That's much more speaking to a general audience. How is this going to save me money? That's going to relate more to somebody who's a consumer, who's a customer. So yeah, C for 19. Let's see. number 20. Sasha Gay, you want to read number 20 for us?
It says, how do the article and the FAQ differ in purpose? A, the article explains the steps in the process of making LEDs, but the FAQ explains the steps in the process of replacing all bulbs with LEDs. B, the article explains how LEDs produce different colors, but the FAQs persuade readers that the new bulbs save energy and money. C, the article persuades readers that the LEDs produce the best quality of light, but the FAQs inform how LEDs work. D, the article persuades readers that LEDs save energy, but the FAQs entertain with an anecdote about LEDs. I think it's B.
B, 20. Yeah, the article explains how they produce different colors, right? That's sort of the main idea there. FAQ persuades readers about, buying the bulbs to save money and energy. Yep, B as in boy. 21. Christiana, I want to take 21 for us. Christiana, you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're fine. Okay.
Oh my God. 21. Okay, how do the article and FAQ differ in structure? A, the article is a list of steps in a process, but the FAQ is shown cause and effect. B, the article shows main ideas and details, but the FAQ will present ideas listed in order of importance. C, the article shown sequential order, but the FAQ compare and contrast information. D, the article is written in straightforward paragraph form, but the FAQ are questions and answers. D.
D,
D
yeah,
as in dog. I said D.
said B or D?
No, D as in
D.
dog.
Yeah, that's right. So the article, written, it's informative. It's written in a straightforward paragraph form where it would appear in an article, and obviously an FAQ, frequently asked questions, is a Q&A format, right? It's question and answer. This comes from that section you remember we did on sort of getting information from different forms of text, which you can't always count on everything being the same format, everything being for the same audience. You might encounter things that, you have to go to an article over here and maybe a graph over there to get information. So this is, sort of that convergence of critical thinking of getting information from different sources. 21, D as in dog. 22, Milda, would you like to read 22 for us?
Yes. Which perspective do the two passages share? A, the United States wastes too much energy and must avoid carbon emissions. B, people must look to save on energy cost. C, LED bulbs are the lights of the future. D, LED bulbs produce poor lighting that cannot compare with the glow of older bulbs.
C, 23, yeah. LED bulbs are the lights of the future, right? So that's sort of the perspective there. The first one in the paragraph form, talking about how it's become this new technology. And lo and behold, so our overall title for both, these two passages are LEDs are the future. So that's something else here, FAQs about energy saving bulbs for the second one. So, there you have, this idea of switching over to that technology. So it's going to be LED bulbs are the future there. 22 is C. 23 is C. Grace, you'd like to read 23 for us?
Okay. On the basis of the information in the article, why will a reader of the FAQ still be reluctant to switch to LED bulb? A. LEDs cost more to use than traditional bulbs. B. Traditional bulbs are safer to install than LEDs. C. LED do not always give off the warm glow of traditional bulbs. And D. Traditional bulbs are easier to manufacture than LED. Is it C?
Yeah, right. The idea there. It's changing the type of light that you might have in your home. So that might be something that you wouldn't want to switch. So it doesn't have the warm glow of traditional bulbs. 23 is C. 24. Sasha Gay, you want to answer 24?
Which statement is most likely true about the authors of both the article and the FAQ? A, the authors know how to manufacture energy-saving bulbs. B, the authors have switched from traditional bulbs to energy-saving bulbs in their homes. C, the authors test the efficiency of light bulbs for the Department of Energy. And D, the authors prefer to work with the cooler, brighter tones of LED bulbs, LED lights. Is it B?
Yeah. So here you have to kind of think about, okay, what is sort of in both, or, what can I imply for both passages and what isn't there? So the authors test the efficiency of light bulbs for the Department of Energy. Can't really say that, right? The authors know how to manufacture energy-saving bulbs. Well, maybe the author of the first article, you have to remember you're dealing with two different people here. So unlikely that they both know how to, use or manufacture them. And then the last one, authors prefer to work with cooler, brighter tones of LED lights. It's more of opinion, and we don't see that offered anywhere that would suggest that at all between either author. And that leaves B, right? So the way that they talk about them in a positive tone in both passages, you could assume then that it's likely that both of these, and as far as LEDs are the future of light is the LED. It's talking about it in a very positive way. You can assume then in both cases that they have changed to LED light bulbs. And let's see, new passages here. Nelda, would you mind reading maybe paragraph 1 through 4?
Yes. Mr. President, Ms. Obama, Secretary of Shinseki, I don't know.
Shinseki, I think.
Okay. General Dempsey, fellow veterans service members, and distinguished guests. Lilibet and I are greatly honored to be here with all of you today as we observe Memorial Day. Together we gather to remember American sons and daughters who sacrificed everything in the defense of our nation. For generations, Americans have set aside this day to honor those who have fought and died to keep our nation safe. A Civil War veteran, Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes once said, every year in the full tide of spring, at the height, height of the symphony of flowers and love and life, there comes a pause, and through the silence, we hear the lonely pipe of death. Every Memorial Day, America is reminded of these selfless individuals, America's quiet heroes. We also think of America's new generation of defenders, protecting the nation's interests in every corner of the globe, preserving our freedoms and our way of life. They work for a more peaceful and hopeful world. As General Douglas MacArthur said, the soldiers above all other people prays for peace, for he must suffer and bear the deepest wounds and scars of war. The memories of American heroes lay to rest here at Arlington and at American cemeteries around the world, are kept alive by families and communities across our great land. This Memorial Day, we honor those families whom our heroes left behind. We honor them in appreciation for the sacrifices they have endured. We also honor the perseverance and the resilience of our military families today, for they are dealing with all of the challenges of life. America thanks you.
Why don't you go ahead and read that last paragraph, paragraph 5. We'll finish up there.
Yes, all of us in positions of trust and responsibility must always make decisions that are worthy of the sacrifices of those who serve our country. On this sacred day, as we recall the words of President Lincoln when he referred to the mystic bonds and chords of memory, we honor Americans' fallen patriots by striving to be worthy on their great sacrifices, as well as work toward making a better future for all mankind. For Memorial Day observance by Chuck Hagel, 2013.
All right. Yeah, and he was the Secretary of Defense for, I think, most of Barack Obama's 10 years president. And now a different passage here. So a special salute. President Barack Obama gave a special salute Monday to Americans who lost their lives fighting in the Korean War and asked Americans to remember the troops' work in Afghanistan as that war winds down. Last Memorial Day, I stood here and spoke about how, for the first time in 9 years, Americans were no longer fighting and dying in Iraq. Today, a transition is underway in Afghanistan, and our troops are coming home, the president said after laying a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns. This time next year, we will mark the final Memorial Day of our war in Afghanistan, calling Virginia's Arlington National Cemetery a monument to a common thread in the American character. Excuse me. Obama asked the audience not to forget the men and women who are willing to give their lives, lay down their lives for the freedoms the nation enjoys. A serviceman recently wrote the president to say he feared our work in Afghanistan excuse me, is fading from memory. Obama said, and he's right, as we gather here today at this very moment, more than 60,000 of our fellow Americans still serve far from home in Afghanistan. They're still going out on patrol, still living in Spartan forward operating bases, still risking their lives. And when they give their lives, they are still being laid to rest in cemeteries in the quiet corners across our country, including here in Arlington. For those of us who bear the solemn responsibility of sending these men and women into harm's way, we know the consequences all too well, Obama said. I feel it every time I meet a wounded warrior, every time I visit Walter Reed, and every time I grieve with the Gold Star family. Chuck Hagel, a former Army sergeant who volunteered for the Vietnam War and is the first enlisted combat veteran to hold the post of Defense Secretary, told CNN's Barbara Starr that he remembers soldiers who served alongside him, including a captain who was killed 14 days into his tour. Hagel was next to him when he died. He said, anybody who has ever been in combat remembers the names, remembers the faces, remembers the fun, remembers the uniqueness of every person, the defense secretary said. And that's an article on CNN.com. Obama offers salute to Korean War vets as Afghanistan war winds down, 2013. So it's the same event. First, we have a speech by Chuck Hagel that's in Arlington, and then we can, we could see, right? We could assume then that at some point Obama also gave a speech at that same event because it's on the same day, right? It's the same Memorial Day. And they're both talking about Arlington National Cemetery outside of DC. All right, so Grace, fill in the blank. What do we have here? Number 25. Grace, are you there?
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. In paragraph 4 of the speech, does the word silence refers to a person's ability to cope with stress or to a person's grief? It refers to a person's ability to cope with stress.
Yeah, 25. Right. So paragraph 4, as we gather here today, this very moment. Is it paragraph 4? Oh, paragraph 4, the first one. Yeah, the memories of Americans here is laid here, Arlington, American cemeteries around the world. Yes, we also honor the perseverance and the resilience of our military families today, for they are dealing with all of the challenges of life. So, thinking about that second statement there, the challenges of life, you can roll that into the person's ability to cope with stress. So, ability to cope with stress. All right. 25, 26. Let's see, Sasha Gay, you want to answer 26?
The author of the speech quotes Oliver Wendell Holmes to show that A, remembering Americans' fallen soldiers is a time-honored event. B, sacrifices often must be made in the name of freedom. C, wars must be fought to guarantee peace for future generations. D, choosing to send others to war is a serious responsibility. Is it?
Do you want to take a look?
Yeah, I'm looking right now.
Oh, okay.
No, is it B?
A, remembering America's fallen soldiers is a time-honored event. Let's see here. Yeah, so Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes once said, Every year in the full tide of spring, at the height of the symphony of flowers and love and life, there comes a pause, and through the silence, we hear the lonely pipe of death. Before that, he's mentioned a Civil War veteran. Before that, for generations, Americans have set aside this day to honor those who have fought and died to keep our nation safe. So that is, in that case, remembering and honoring the dead there. 27, let's see here, 27. So which three expressions indicate that paragraph 2 of the article is organized according to a time sequence? Write the expressions in the order in which they appear. Paragraph 2 of the article. So what shows the passage of time here?
For the first time.
Last Memorial Day, okay. That's going to be the first one. What else?
Today,
Today, right? So now the present, and then what else?
This time next year.
Yeah, this time next year. So the past, the present, the future, right? So last Memorial Day, today, and then this time next year will mark our final year in Afghanistan. He was only off by 8 years. So 20, let's see here. Christiana, you want to answer 28?
okay. Which perspective do the two passages share? A, those who have experienced combat always remember always remember the others with whom they fought. B, soldiers most hope for peace because they must sacrifice the most in times of war. C, those responsible for sending others to war are aware of the sacrifices soldiers and their families make. D, servicemen and women are too often disrespected by the public. C, those responsible for it. C.
Yeah, C. Right. So that's what they both share, right? We have quotes from Barack Obama in the article that discuss that idea, right? That, he goes to Walter Reed Hospital and he encounters wounded warriors, and, that remembering of what it means for them to send men and women to war. And Chuck Hagel also referenced that as well in his speech. So see there for 28. Continuing with our Memorial Day speeches, some drag and drop here. So drag and drop the phrases that describe the passages into the correct location on the chart. So was it the speech or the news article has a third person point of view?
It was first.
Where's the third person go?
News article.
Right. And remember, third person means you're talking about someone else, right? So you use those pronouns he, him. In this case, it's Barack Obama. So, they'd reference, him specifically, and then they'd use like he, him pronouns. So that means first person point of view is from the speech, right? I. When you're, and often, that's going to be the idea behind a speech. If you are delivering it, which one would have a specific audience?
The speech.
Yes. And that leaves general audience. Now, of course, a speech could have a broader audience, but particularly if it's an in-person, it's at an event, not like if the president is speaking to us on television, like Jimmy Carter, right? Giving a television address to explain the energy crisis, that has a much larger audience. It is for Americans, but it's going to be a larger audience. This, they're actually at Arlington Cemetery, so it's a smaller audience. It's more specific. The article on CNN.com is for a general audience. It's more of a news type of article. It's informative. I mean, both are, to some degree, but the speech is more about evoking emotion and memorializing soldiers on Memorial Day, right? That's the idea there. And the news article is just informing the general audience of what transpired on Memorial Day. All right. Now, I think we only got like 3 to go here. Let's see. Grace, you want to answer number 30 for us?
Okay. How do the speech and the article differ in purpose? The speech is the speech motivates audience members to join the armed forces, but the article informs readers of the sacrifices that soldiers make. B, the speech honors those who fought and died, but the article describes a Memorial Day tribute. C, the speech persuades others to help support military families, but the article explains how to show this kind of support. And D, the speech exploits various Memorial Day observance, but the article entertains with details about a Memorial Day celebration. Okay. The speech B.
Yeah, perfect. Right. So the speech is live, right? It's at the event. So it's directly speaking to honoring, and the article, right? If we're dealing, with a news article, that should be the primary objective, that it's describing, it's informing, right? It's offering information. So in this case, describing the Memorial Day tribute. 30s B. Let's see here. Sasha Gay, you want to answer 31?
What information in the news article contributes to the credibility of the author of the speech? The author of the speech, A, quotes experienced career soldiers. B, volunteered for and saw active combat. C, is a member of President Obama's cabinet. D, has a son and daughter in the military. Is it A?
It's B. Yeah, so information in the news article contributes to the credibility of the author of the speech. The author of the speech volunteered for and saw active combat. So the article does discuss probably Obama more and quotes from him, but at the bottom, it also mentions Chuck Hagel, being the first enlisted man to serve as Secretary of Defense, and his experience in Vietnam. So yeah, sort of adding credibility to the speech, right? So gaining information from one type of source, and then using it to sort of gauge another type. So that's where you have to kind of think about. It's like, okay, well, who was the author of the speech? And that, will help you, find the information in the other piece. All right, so 31 was B. 32, I think that's our last one. Christiana, why don't you try 32?
Yes, 32. On the backs of the information, in both texts, in both texts, which is the most logical conclusion to draw about men and women who serve in the military? A, they must learn to forget their combat experience. B, their long absence can cause hardship in their family lives. C, they seek fame and glory by going to war. D, their sacrifices are too often taken for granted. D,
D, right? You can draw that conclusion, right? You get that information from both sides. Barack Obama mentions that, or we get quotes from him in the article that lends itself to that idea, and also from the speech above that about the forgotten men and women who died at war. And that is the last question. You guys actually did really well on that, and I don't know if it's just because you maybe remembered them, or just getting that extra practice. That goes from a while back. That was back in February when we did that review initially. So things to think about. A lot of that was dealing with multiple pieces of information, multiple pieces of information and different types of information. Right off the bat, we had article about ocean acidity and a graph. So that's something you may encounter a lot on the exam, where you have two different types of information that you're having to use to make some critical thinking decisions about. Inferences, right? Reading between the lines, what's being inferences and implicit and explicit ideas that we talked about, drawing conclusions, all came up several times in that review. So what can you put together that's not explicitly stated about what you read? What is implied? What can you summarize from those, and what can you draw conclusions about? Those are things that we keep encountering that are likely to get asked on your exam. Any questions about that? Any questions about the test? Thoughts? Feelings? How are you guys feeling about it?
Does a practice test have an extended response section?
Yes. Yeah. So I was going to ask you guys, going into tomorrow, since for some of you it will be a last opportunity before you take the practice test. Would you want to try to do some more extended response type of activity? Would you want to cover mechanics, more reading practice? Which one would be best?
Oh.
Nilda says both. I'm game for anything, of course, but it would be better for me to know tonight so I can get some, prep. So, would you want to work through, maybe we wouldn't have to necessarily maybe do an entire extended response, but maybe I could take you through the steps again. Would that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's just kind of generally work on, let me write this all down. We will, so much paper. I need a clean sheet of paper. Okay, here we go. We'll work on some just extended response type exercises, and some strategies when you do that. And we'll do some mechanics. I know the unit 4 review was pretty short, so maybe we'll just do or either the summative review part of just like punctuation, subject verb agreement, just to give you guys a refresher on some of those elements. How does that sound for tomorrow? Okay, so because honestly, the only real difference between unit 1 and unit 2 Unit 1, we dealt more with fiction, right? So some things about characters, right? Ideas about that. Themes and stuff. So I think, you guys might be okay on that. If that's something after you guys take the practice test that you feel like you have some issue with, we can cover that. I think tomorrow, though, working with some extended response type activities, and then do some language mechanics and stuff again, and then you guys will be ready for your practice exam. All right. So any more questions?
Please, the practice exam, would there be extended response in the English?
Right. Yeah, there's an extended response piece. So it's going to be very much like what you're going to encounter on the GAD exam. Tracy Johnson made me take the practice test. I wish I could remember more about it, but I do remember that I had to write a written response. She wanted to see how I scored on it before she hired me for the job. But yeah, there was an extended response piece. I wish I could. I don't know anybody here recently that's actually taken it that could give us some experience. But the other thing is, don't sweat it. It's good practice. Go into it with, don't panic. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just get the experience of taking it and sort of the time frame. That's really what's important. And then we'll work towards getting you guys there if there's more teaching that needs to be done. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? We're all good.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So tomorrow, extended response, some grammar, and then you guys will be ready for the test. And you're all going to score 200s. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Y'all have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.